Hi, everybody. My name is Jack Berkowitz. Super happy for you to be here. I'm the Chief Data Officer of Securiti, which is a company that specializes in data and AI governance, privacy, security, and all the good things dealing with problems that Chief Data Officers have. With me today is Alaa Moussawi. Welcome to the interview. And maybe briefly share what you do with us, because I find it to be one of the most unique jobs in the data space.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the warm introduction. My name is Alaa Moussawi. I also go by Al, and I'm the chief data scientist for the New York City Council, which is a role that I've been in for a little over 6 years now. And as chief data scientist, I actually take on two functions. One, which is running a team of data scientists, which I developed, built up here at the council. And I also lead a team of software engineers, data engineers, also, which I built while here at the council over the past 6 years. And the purpose of these are two fairly distinct teams, both highly technical. The team of data scientists work to make the legislative process fact-based and evidence-driven. We want to be able to perform objective analyses to help policymakers, elected officials, analysts, councils understand what's going on in New York City. And we want to be able to crunch the numbers in a way where we let the data speak in the least biased way possible. We do a lot of visualizations. So communication is extremely important, especially when you need to take technical concepts and distill those findings to non-scientific audiences. So dashboards, charts, maps, whatever it is that allows people to understand those findings is a huge component of what we do. And on the software engineering, data engineering side, we build all of the infrastructure internally for all of the data processes that go on. I won't say all of the data processes that go on within the council, but a lot of the data processes within the legislative division and many of the data processes in other parts of the council. So one of the systems we've built tracks the legislative process from inception of an idea. So a council member, an elected official has an idea for a piece of legislation. They submit it to our software, which timestamps it. And the process of having policy analysts and attorneys work on bringing that idea for legislation to fruition and it passing as a bill is all managed. The communication for it is managed through this software that we've built. And then we have other things. So when district offices liaise with their constituents, they need to track casework and manage all of that. And we built a CRM for that.
It's kind of amazing, right?
A lot of stuff. Yeah.
The scope of it all is kind of amazing. In a previous role, my team, was partnered with a group of economists that would build, a jobs number, right? And it's interesting you were saying about the presentation of the information or the communication, the data storytelling, right? Is as important as the data itself, because sometimes we in the business get wrapped up. Hey, we found the number, but if somebody's not able to consume it, or if a system's not able to take advantage of it, if you're building an ML system, it gets lost, right? When you talk about making data accessible, right? New York City's had this sort of long history of making data accessible. Right? They have the Open Data Initiative, which I think started back in 2014 or maybe even a little bit earlier. Talk to me about how that helps you and your team, and then how it helps other people to understand data.
Yeah, absolutely. I think NYC was one of the first, if not the first city to create an open data law, which requires that agencies report any data that they make publicly available or any data that's required often through legislation on this one, I guess you can call it a data lake house. I apologize if I'm misusing that terminology.
It's like a portal, but it also has processing. It has
Yeah,
all sorts of different things all put together. Yeah.
absolutely. It makes the data accessible to people who may not have the experience using software that would help them otherwise process the data. I guess I think anything that you can do with it can be done in Excel, but it's a little more intuitive, I would say. But more importantly, it has so many data sets, and you can search through open data and find any of the data sets that are relevant to your needs. Within the data team at the council, I'd say over 80% of the data that we use is sourced from the open data portal. And it's constantly expanding. It's constantly growing. It's been around for 10 years. And as time goes on, we're refining the legislation requiring with reporting requirements, getting rid of any old and stale stuff and creating new requirements to make sure that whatever data our constituents would like to see or elected officials and the council need for administrative purposes is available so that we can really understand what's going on the ground in New York City. And
Yeah.
going back to your point about the visualization, you can also use the open data portals tools to visualize the information directly. So it's a one-stop shop to really get a lot of basic data analysis done.
Yeah. And so, when we met in New York a few weeks ago, and then when we were prepping for this interview, right? Um, I was asking you about generative AI. In fact, in prep for today, I just spent time on Perplexity. I spent time on OpenAI, on ChatGPT. I even went over to Anthropic and used a little bit of Sonnet today, right? Asking questions about the data in New York, right? So, and I know that what I was seeing, I was having issues understanding, okay, well, was that current? What's the reference? All these other things. So, talk to me about how you see Gen AI coming, right? With citizens that are or legislative staffs that are doing exactly what I did today. And then how do you help guide the city of New York and all your constituents, right? I want to say 6, 7, 8 million people in the 5 boroughs, right? Help me out or help us understand how you see that interplay between Gen AI and all these tools and where you think it's going to go in the long run.
Fantastic question. So I love Gen AI. It's something that we are working to implement here at the council. And it's in its early stages, so it can be taken in the wrong directions in many ways. But when you can limit the scope of the AI, you can make it do great and useful stuff. And I think that's the real beauty behind retrieval augmented generation, RAG models. You can create a database of information and you can sort of prompt engineer your models to only query information from that database. And what makes that really powerful is that for certain limited scope applications, it can then replace a lot of human labor that historically could not have been done through a machine. For example, it can do a lot of customer service work. If you have training data to teach it how to respond, for example, to constituents about certain requests, it can handle those tasks for you. Even when it comes to searching for data, if you have repositories of data and you've structured them in a way where your model can then access the correct information about that data, people can then identify the exact data they need in real time. So I'll give you one example that we're working on at the council. We have many legal memos. We have a repository of legal memos written by staff. They're all files and files of data regarding cases that they've worked on and the legal opinions and findings of the body. And as we move forward in time, we want to make sure that we don't come to any findings contradictory to those findings in the past. And that's just how lawyers kind of do what they do. And we want to be able to understand all of the research we've done in the past in a very simple way. And with files that are usually called unstructured data, that's very difficult. But with RAG models, you can easily create a model, which is what we've done, where you can query all of this data and you can find what information you need by having the machines read that text, process it with the regular, large language model processing, and respond to questions in real time based on the needs of an analyst or an attorney, so that they can then get to the actual legislation that they're working on. It really cuts down the time. When you have to perform multiple tasks and you're switching focus, that really degrades your cognitive abilities. So being able to really increase the efficiency of the end user like that allows them to create a much stronger work product at the end of the day. And it saves them hours and hours of time. It helps them make sure that they don't miss the information that they need to find.
It's a great use case, and I'm thinking about my own work and my own team's work, and it's a low-hanging opportunity that we should take advantage of. So last question for you before we wrap up. So most of the people, myself included, work for corporations, right? One of the good things about corporations, but also one of the bad ones is, we're all familiar with the Mark Twain quote, "You can lie with statistics." And you see people playing games with the numbers. There's the classic, salesperson versus, delivery person arguing about whether or not there's revenue booked or not, these types of things. But you really deal sometimes with politically charged, tasks, and people may want to cherry pick. So, but you've also been this incredibly successful leader of building a capability that's unique, really unique in the world. So you've been able to be convincing about the value of data and the value of your team to maybe some people that might be doubting. Yeah, okay, that's great, but I still want to do this. I don't care what the data says, right? So quickly give me, what's the one or two things that you've been able to do in building this capability and working with your leadership to say, hey, this is important that we continue to do. It's important that we continue to fund, because again, people in the business world are always fighting that argument, and it may be a little bit easier for them than somebody in the government world. And again, I probably should mention, I started in the government world, supporting government organizations. So, yeah.
Yeah, great question. So I guess to be very transparent, we are supporting the elected officials. The public elects these officials, so they are the ones in charge of making final decisions. We just do our best to provide them with the best information possible of what's going on the ground in New York City so they can make the most informed decisions. That's our role. So we'd love for them to use the data to make the final decision, but as the elected officials, that's completely up to them. So we leave that in their hands. But many times the data is very clear. So I'll give you one example. We run a pay disparity analysis, and this is a yearly thing that we've done since 2020. And the short of it is that we were able to find that there is occupational segregation, meaning that you find marginalized groups in positions that pay less, and you find the more well-off groups in positions that pay more. I should say the groups that we know to be more well-off historically.
Yeah.
And and so this reaffirmed something that many people knew, but with the data backing it, we had incontrovertible evidence for the claims, and we were able to move forward and pass legislation trying to address the underlying issues of the occupational segregation.
I love that, right? Pay equity is something dear to my heart. It's something that in my previous role, we were very proud of being able to inform companies about pay equity disparities, right? Because, if you're working a job, you should get paid, right? And that ability of using data to be able to change policy or change company behavior is really, data for good. And you can't ask for a better thing. So on that note, Al, why don't we wrap up here again? Al Moussawi from New York City. My name is Jack Berkowitz. I'm the Chief Data Officer of Securiti. We're a company that deals with data privacy, data governance, AI governance, data security, and all the things that Chief Data Officers worry about day to day. Thanks for your time, and it's really been my pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Jack. It was a pleasure chatting with you.